Hey guys, just getting ready to do an oil change on my 2011 GTI. You see I've already removed the top cover here. This is pretty simple. It just has these little rubber things that pop down onto these little nubs here. So all you do is grab a corner and just give it a little tug up, and it pops off all four of these there, and pops the cover off for you. Then I've loosened the oil cap up to let some pressure out. Loosened up the dipstick, just kind of lets the oil flow a little bit better. Not a big deal, but you can see the filter right here on top on the GTI, which you just end up popping this hose out of these little clips, a couple of them, just to make it a little easier to get to that when you need to. What I do before I undo the oil cap and the dipstick and get to the filter here, I took some compressed air, the little end, and just blew out the area around here, get any sand or dirt or anything away from where you're going to be opening up anything, so it doesn't fall down in the motor. I started off here by all I need is just a couple of I've got some like 2x12s here, just cutting little pieces. You can see one on each side there. Just drive the car up on them, gives you that little extra you need to get your drain pan here underneath. Get the drain plug undone. Is a 19mm socket. Pretty simple. Here's the filter. I picked this up at Advanced Auto Parts. They carry these Mann filters, which are really good for the Volkswagens, and you can see the part number there. And then I'm going to use some Castrol Syntec. Fully synthetic is all you use in these Volkswagens. With I'm going with the VW for this oil change here. So all right, just crawl under here. Got the drain plug here, which I already loosened a little bit, and bumps there. And wish I had the car a little bit higher, as you can see, but just doing it simple without getting the jack out or anything. And the regular ramps just don't fit under the GTI, so yeah, a little tight there. I wonder if alright, it should be finger loose now. It's got a little sticky spot in the threads for some reason. This is the first oil change I've done on this car. I'm just out of my dealer maintenance plan, you know, the free ones. Last oil change was done by them. So alright, it's coming loose now. Make sure the plug is in position to catch that oil when it comes. The pan is in the right spot. That oil is going to come flying out of there. There we go. And I got my rag right here handy. My fingers are covered with oil. There is a 19mm drain plug. I always like to have some paper towels too. I find that they're a little more absorbent than the shop rags, just for getting that oil off. And we're just going to let that drain for a few minutes. While that's draining, I'm going to get the I've got one of these adjustable oil filter wrenches here. Going to put on there. This actually, when you put the socket on there and you crank on it, it tightens down on the filter and kind of crimps it. And filter shouldn't be that hard to get undone. So this should have only been put on hand tight. This one's a little tight though. Alright, make sure my wrench isn't hitting on anything. Sometimes your filter wrench sides can hit on the housing back here. Looks like I've got it in the right spot. It's just on there, super tight. Okay, I need to move my wrench because it's going to hit the housing back here. So pick it up, move it over a little. There we go. Ah, it's coming loose. Okay, that was a little harder than they usually are on a vehicle that's been regularly maintained, but who knows what the last mechanic did to crank it on there, so that's all right. And this should be able to pull this straight off. Just have a paper towel handy here. Hose out of my way. Alright, perfect. Flip it upside down and you can see that's what the end of your filter looks like. Basically just a couple little drips there. So I pulled it straight up and out, and the suction holds the oil in there, or the vacuum in there, and then flipped it over real quick. So be real careful not to drop any dirt down in there. We don't want to get any crud in there. And you can see that's what the top of your oil filter looks like. This piece here with the threads and everything, and this plastic ring should come with the new filter, and you want to make sure that that comes unscrewed. It can get stuck in there and stay down in there, and then you won't be able to get the new filter on. Now I'm going to very carefully clean the edge off there, trying to make sure nothing goes down into the engine. Again, you saw I talked about the beginning. I blew the whole engine off with compressed air before I did any of this to try and make sure there was no loose dirt here that I could knock down in there. Okay, here's our new Mann filter. And you can see it has a brand new threaded piece on there with the plastic ring. I'll try to show you. See, this is actually tight on the new one, and this is the rubber gasket right in here. So we want to rub some oil on this rubber gasket. So I'll get some fresh oil here in a minute and just rub a little on that whole rubber seal there before I screw the filter down on. Okay, before we screw the filter on, you see I found a spot, since I'm doing this kind of trying to hold the camera, and I poured just a little bit of oil into the cap from the oil container there, just so I can get my finger in there, make sure it's a clean finger, and just spread it all the way around. Just get a little, you just want that rubber to be, kind of lubricated a little bit so that it screws on and seals up real nice. So okay, now we're ready to screw on our new oil filter here. This goes right down in, and it's got a lot of threads. Okay, just hand tight, good hand tight, perfect. That's it. Make sure my dipstick's back in. We're going to be adding the oil in just a minute. Now it's been draining this whole time, so we're going to head under the car, put the drain plug back in. Okay, we're down to a slow drip there, and been draining this whole time while we were undoing the filter and everything. So I'm just going to get up there with this paper towel and wipe the area around where the drain plug goes, so we get a good seal on that. Again, this would be a lot easier if I really had taken the time to raise the car up. Oh, chunk of fur there. I wonder what that's from. Just put my rag under there so I can reach this better. There we go. As you guys can tell, I'm not a real expert at this. I've been changing my own oil and working on stuff for a lot of years, but still, it's always an adventure for me. Something different on every vehicle. Yeah, there's those threads are tight there. That's kind of weird. Finger tight first. Clean it up a little bit here. Alright. This bolt is, the drain plug bolt's supposed to go to 22 foot-pounds, so I've set my torque wrench for 22 foot-pounds. And I know it's been pretty anal, as a lot of people just choose to kind of use their sense of, you know, their hand torque to do this, but I'm just going to give it a little. There we go. 22 foot-pounds. Alright, so that should be leak-free. We'll check it again later though once we get it warmed up. Okay, time to add our oil. Get our cap there, and you can see there's actually some gunk under the cap here. Just trying to work its way in, so we'll get that all wiped off of there. Yeah, it's I've never had a car like this that had kind of a funnel for dirt right down to the oil cap like this. Even my old GTIs, I don't remember them being like this. I had a couple of I had an 84 GTI, an 84 Rabbit, 77 Scirocco, some of those, and even an old Bug. But yeah, let's see, wiping the cap off here, trying to get this all cleaned up a bit. Set that aside, upside down so it doesn't get dirt. It's my favorite funnel, as you can see here. I cut up a Fago bottle, and I like it because I have the cap that I can screw on there after I do the oil, because inevitably, even if you wipe it out, there's always a little bit that drips out, gets on your shelf or whatever, so you can screw the cap on there and put it away on the shelf, and it stays clean. So it's kind of nice. And if you put a baggie or something over the top, the dust and crap doesn't get in there, and it stays clean for you for next time. If you look here, there's a lot of crud that has been just funneled by this whole thing down in. It's a very, I don't know, it's a weird design, but I guess there's some logic behind it. So I'm gonna have to try and wipe out very carefully all that stuff here, and try not to get any of it down in to the motor. Man, see, a chunk just fell down on top of that little plate there, so that's down in, so I'll have to get that out when I'm done here. Oh hey, I didn't even notice this. A little rubber gasket comes right off. Isn't that cool? So you can get to cleaning out your this inside part a little bit easier. That's awesome. Learn something new every day. Again, like I said, I've never done this car, these newer GTIs before, so this is a first for me here, checking this out. Let's see, clean spot on the paper towel here. So we definitely do not want that stuff down in the engine. Now, let's see here, we got that little, it's clever, they do have this little plate here to keep most things from falling directly in. I was able to, luckily that grabbed that one little chunk, so I can just get that chunk off of there, and there we go. Alright, I think that's a little more over here. Yep. Okay, now we're ready to add the oil in. It says 4.9 quarts, but I'm only going to do about 4.5 to start with. In my experience, it's easier to have to add a little more oil than it is to drain some, because you put too much in, and too much is bad for a motor. So we'll line this up with a little hole over on the side there and start pouring. Okay, check here on the back of the jug. You can see we're just still got about 2 quarts left, so we want to go down. Since this is a 5.1 quart jug, I'll go down to just where there's about a half a quart left or so here. Oil goes in real fast, even with this that little baffle plate down in there. Since I have the funnel positioned over that hole in the baffle, it really just flows right down, no problem. Alright, the can's getting pretty light. Looks like we have about 3/4 of a quart left. Put a little more in. Yeah, of course the jug has to be kind of level to really get a feel for how much is in there. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm going to set it on the ground here just to give you an idea. And if you can see, the level is just above the half quart line there. It's right there, so we'll put a little bit more in. Whoa, and there's a mess. Always fun trying to hold the camera and do this at the same time. There we go. Alright, I'll get some fresh paper towels for a little cleanup here. There, I've got the cap screwed on my Fago funnel there. Any 2-liter bottle works great. I recycled this. I've probably been using this thing, I bet, for at least 5 years, and still is in great shape, works great. I'll set that aside, and we got a little bit of cleanup to do here on my little spill. Not that little oil ever hurt anything, but it attracts the dirt, so I won't bore you with the cleanup. I'll just make sure that I don't get any credit. Matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lid that I cleaned up. Again, it's good to have, this also is a rubber seal on here, so good to have a bit of oil on that so that it seals up real nice. It's pretty damp with oil now, so alright. Don't see any chunks on there. And it's just as a quarter turn oil cap, just like that. Alright, I'm going to do a little cleanup. I won't bore you guys with this. Okay, so I cleaned up a little bit there, and we got our little rubber O-ring to go back on there, which has a little notch. I don't know if you can see that. In the front there's a little notch that goes over this little bit on the oil or on the valve cover here, and that should just kind of fit down on there. A little bit harder to do with the oil cap on, but I see the need to risk anything. I clean the rubber off a little bit and such, but yeah, that's on there. Tight. Okay, so we make sure the cap is on, that we have put sufficient amount of oil in the engine, dipstick's in tight, oil filter's on. We check to make sure the drain plug is in tight, and we're going to start it up and just run it for a little bit. Okay, and now we will clean part of paper towel here. Check that hose back in place there, and its little clips that we undid. And we'll check the oil level here. Wipe the dipstick. Back in. And we should be right in the money there. You see there? Perfect. I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to overfill the engine. And I'll just check it regularly like I normally do. And I'm going to look underneath here. We just look around the oil filter, make sure there's nothing seeping around the sides of the oil filter. And then we'll look underneath. And we can see that there is nothing on the ground, except for that one little drip I left off the side of my oil pan, drain pan there. But around the drain plug here, there is perfectly clean. That's what we want. And I always keep an eye on that for, you know, a few drives after I do the oil change too. Just keep checking it and make sure that everything stays dry. Now we can put the cover back on here. Just kind of get a relative line up here on those. You can see the this hole centers right on that rubber piece that goes around the gasket, and you can just push right down, and those four little rubber grommets attach onto those little rubber or those little posts, and that's it. Just kind of sits on there with those little things snapped in place. Important part of every oil change is filling up the washer fluid also, and checking the other fluids. Make sure everything is good. This isn't going to take much because I think I just refilled it a while ago, because winter here uses a lot of that, unfortunately. So, and here we can see the coolant level is above minimum there, and also the brake fluid reservoir is down in there, which with the flashlight you can kind of see the level, but this has a warning sensor on it, so I don't really worry too much about that personally. And a general look around. The air filter is good. You can see my custom short ram intake modeled after Last Human's Garage did a piece on that with the epoxy filter, and so I kind of built my own with some of the Spectre stuff, and it's been working great. So, okay, here we are inside. As you can see, I've got the Kessie system with the push button. I just push the button, turns on the power, and I happen to be on the screen here. If not, you use your steering wheel controls to scroll back and forth. This says service 2,600 miles. I'm doing it a little bit early. I just like to always be a little ahead of the schedule on that stuff. And I noticed the oil was looking a bit dark when I checked it before, so I figured I'd do it a little early, so I'm going to scroll down to our menu here of settings and go to the service section, and you press OK here, and we're going to go to reset. Do I really want to reset it? I'm going to press OK again, and now the service should be reset. I can go back, and I can hit the little return button here. That'll take us, no, I guess it doesn't. Usually it takes you back. We'll go back up here. Oh, we just need to go to the left. There we go. Now there we are, service in 10,000 miles or 372 days. And next we're just going to go out for a little test drive and around the block, and then bring it back, make sure nothing's dripping.